Welcome back to the Dungeon Dive. Daniel here. I hope you're doing well, and if you're not, I hope you are soon. Okay, today in the Dungeon Dive, we are going to be taking a look at two supplements. One is called Downtime in Zyan, and this is activities between adventures. And the other is the newest book from Madeline Hale, and that is A Traveler's Guide, Inns and Taverns. Now, of course, Madeline Hale needs no introduction. She is the author of two of the most ubiquitous tools in all of role-playing, and especially solo role-playing, and that is Table Fables 1 and 2. But this is one of her newest books here, or her newest book, and I just stumbled across this on itch.io on Christmas morning, and I bought the PDF and I printed it out. I printed out a nice copy on my new printer with a nice cardstock cover, and I'm really happy with the way this turned out. And I read this book yesterday on Christmas morning next to the Christmas tree, and it was like a warm, cozy, and inviting little tome to lose myself in for about 30 minutes or so. And I highly recommend this book. So, A Traveler's Guide, Inns and Taverns, written by Madeline Hale, 2022. And in here, we have a collection of 10 different taverns. So these are detailed taverns that Madeline has created. And then we have part 2 is a list of tables and generators for creating your own tavern. And so in her introduction, she says, taverns may be the most important place in any RPG. They are the starting line of all adventures, the meeting place for mercenaries, a warm haven to whisper rumors across a dirty table. Quests flourish in the smoky corners of the world. They represent a melting pot of people, all seeking the same comforts of warm food, simple conversation, and a clean bed out of the rain. In this book, you will find a collection of taverns as well as tables, generators, and lists of things to help you create your own and provide them with the details that such a place would inevitably accumulate. I hope you and your party find somewhere comfortable to sleep tonight. So when you are playing a game, you could come across a tavern and you could roll a d10 and use one of the many pre-generated taverns that Madeline has provided here, such as maybe the Tortured Rat. And from the outside, the Tortured Rat doesn't appear to be much of a tavern. In fact, it doesn't appear to be much of a building at all. It's a small weathered shed, completely outshined by the heavy wooden sign that hangs over the door. Too much smoke pours out of the chimney for a shack of this size. The stable beyond is quite large, and more than a dozen horses are housed warmly inside. A miserable stable boy hunches under a rough blanket, a book on his lap. So you get a nice little introduction to the setting, to that kind of like the vibe of the tavern. And then each tavern also comes with a description of the barkeep. So the barkeep for the Tortured Rat is Ernest Stonepoint, and you learn a little bit about him and his background and his wants and desires. And then each tavern also has a list of notable patrons and kind of the general size and attitude of the crowd that might be found at the Tortured Rat. So here we might find Keegan Florence, a willowy, delicate person with pale green skin and long hair bound back into a messy bun. They sit alone at a table, nursing a half-full cup of mulled wine and quietly skimming a slender book. They are quite shy, but will happily explain the book they are reading, A Guide to Mushrooms of the Region. Keegan is in search of a rare high bolete mushroom, a very tasty fungus once thought to be extinct. They wish to take the spores and rejuvenate the population. So sprinkled throughout the descriptions of the tavern, the barkeep, and the patrons, you will find little adventure hooks, little things that could lead you on to some other quests. You will also find a D6 table for encounters that are specifically written for each inn. And you will also find the prices for any beds or lodging that they offer. And the most important things, the most popular things maybe on their menu, such as here we have the menu at the Tortured Rat here. Each meal comes with a half loaf of bread and slice of cheese. You can buy an ale for 5 silver pieces or copper pieces, a light ale that tastes of citrus with an earthy and rustic aftertaste. You can buy some mulled wine. Perhaps some lamb stew with potatoes for 6 silver. A hearty brown stew with chunks of lamb, potatoes, and carrots. You can get cabbage and sausage, roasted beef, and apple oats. I loved reading the menus for these various taverns while I was enjoying this book yesterday. It made me very hungry. But then we have taverns such as Knife Point Inn. We have the Ale Alley, and that one comes with a little map here. We have the Pharmacy Ale House. That's a cool one because it deals with magical tinctures and magical drinks that might cure you. The Old Oak Inn. What else do we have here? We have the Tangled Web. The Tangled Web was kind of cool because at the center of that tavern is a really popular library that is stocked with all kinds of interesting books. So just a really nice little zine here. I absolutely love this thing. And then at the end, we get into the tables to where you can roll up your own tavern. So we have a list for tavern names, the quality of the tavern, a little bit about its cleanliness, the lighting, the atmosphere, the vibe, a little bit about its barkeep. And then we have its menu, what it focuses on, what kind of food it focuses on, the exterior of the building, and then a D100 system for coming up with quirks. So perhaps your 65. Let's see what 65 is here. Anyone who sleeps in the tavern's beds will have a perfect restful night of sleep. So just a nice little list of things that you can add to your inns that you are in your taverns that you are creating to make them more interesting. And yeah, highly recommend it. I'm actually buying 3 copies of the PDF to send to some Dungeon Dive patrons. And I'm hoping to get Madeline Hale on the channel sometime soon for an interview. We connected a little bit on Itch the other day. All right, so the next book is called Downtime in Zyan. And Downtime in Zyan is created by Ben Lawrence, did the writing, and Evelyn Moreau did the artwork. Layout by Lester B. Portley, and editing by Ava Islam. So this is a book all about gamifying downtime, the stuff that your characters will do in between adventures. And it has a downtime theory, just a little bit. This is a very kind of philosophical book on play, on gameplay, on incorporating game mechanisms to drive story, to drive narrative, and most importantly, to drive character development and to connect your characters to the worlds they are inhabiting. So we have a system of different things that your characters can do during their downtime. They can building an institution, cultivating a relationship, gathering intelligence, learning a skill, martial training, research, revelry, spellcraft, splendid artifacts, spiritual exercises. And then we have some articles written on downtime as world building, so a collection of further reading, and then the credits here. So downtime theory. The system was written for classical or old school play. In this play style, the focus of the game is adventuring, understood as a cooperative exploration of fantastic and perilous spaces. Such adventuring occurs in an open world, what is sometimes called a sandbox, where the player characters make their own decisions about what adventures to pursue with no pre-existing plot arcs or adventure paths. The only intrinsic direction of the sandbox comes from lures to adventure that tie the accumulation of experience points to the extraction of treasure from wondrous and lethal places. One may play in this style of games of any length, from sprawling campaigns that last a decade to one-shots occupying a single night. This system is written for campaigns that run long enough for characters to develop over time, and that's really important because a lot of the activities that are provided in this book will take time, will take some monetary investment, some time investment, and some investment just from the character. And so you might want to build an institution or invest in an institution, such as starting your own tavern maybe, or a bar, or not a bar, or a library, or maybe you want to invest in a wizard's tower, a wizard's library that has already been established in the city. And this gives you a detailed instructions on how to do that. A lot of these systems deal with you start a little tracker and you progress on a track as long as things are progressing in a positive direction. But there is also a chance to fall back and have your downtime not be as fruitful as others. So you have an institution tracker where your institutions will rise from being inconsequential to minor to middling to major influential, famous, or infamous, and legendary. And then it has rules on establishing how your institution will grow, the growing pains, and the growth that happens on that chart. And then you will also have some subtables in a lot of these. For instance, here we will have growing pains, and you will have 1d10. So if something bad happens, you can roll a d10, and we can look at 7. Sabotage. Peer rivals engage in some act of sabotage to ruin their new competitor. Arson, spoiling or poisoning supplies, sneaking a giant spider in the basement, or cursing customers. Something must be done to overcome this problem by the end of the next downtime, or it will lose its newfound gains, falling one step on the institution tracker. So not only will you get rules on how to handle your downtime in Downtime and Zyan, but each subsystem will also provide more seeds for more adventure. So you might want to cultivate a relationship where you can move from being strangers to being intimate. Maybe they can become an adventuring companion. You might want to gather intelligence about an upcoming quest, and so there are rules for doing that during your downtime. Maybe you want to learn a new skill. Maybe you want to have some martial training, become a better fighter. You want to research something. I really like Revelry. Revelry is really cool. This is something that a lot of protagonists in sword and sorcery stories would participate in. So Revelry is downtime action in which a character flush with gold spends it on wild revelries, whether a feast lasting many nights, raucous tavern crawl, or the extended use of mind-altering substances. The player describes where and with whom their character intends to share their revelry, keeping in mind that it must involve the expenditure of large sums. So this is really good for those kinds of campaigns where you start your character poor every session. You know, they've gone on one quest, they come back into town, and they blow all their money. This is kind of like the Fafhrd and Grey Mouser style of roleplay here. So you have to spend a whole bunch of money. You might gain some XP, and then you might have a mishap while you are having your revelry. So a mishap here would be D8. So maybe you roll a 2 here, a brawl. The character starts the next session 1d4 hit points below maximum. The character will collaborate with the DM to say who the fight was with and how it ensued. And then you also might have some revelry boons. So maybe some good things happen during your crazy nights of spending large sums of cash. So golden opportunity. During the revels, the character finds a unique opportunity to set back the interest of a rival by going on an adventure. If the character has no rivals, treat this as the following result. And then maybe you want to create a spell if you're a magic user. You can have some different disasters happen while you are creating that spell. You can write a spell book. You can craft splendid artifacts that have magical qualities. And you can also go on spiritual exercises. If you want to have a spiritual character, maybe your cleric needs to, or your monk needs to get right with his or her god. And then we have a brief article on downtime as world building. An article on future reading, and that is that. Very handy. I talked a little bit about downtime in my 5 tips for solo role playing, and ignore downtime unless it's actually not downtime. And this book creates things that sound like downtime, but they're really not. And it gives you systems to handle those things and to make them relevant to the game you are playing and to plant seeds for further adventures. So both of these I find very useful. Traveler's Guide, Inns, and Taverns, written by Madeline Hale, and Downtime in Zyan, and that is written by Ben Lawrence. Sorry guys, well I hope you enjoyed this look at these 2 zines, and we will talk to you later. Bye-bye.